YouTube frogs, welcome back to another complete guide, this time covering our newest 4-star, Lia's operatic queen, Yun Jin. Just like Shenhe, Yun Jin shares a very unique kit design, so expect more emphasis on her talents and how she works. Don't worry though, I'll be cutting out a majority of any math present so it doesn't become a lecture. Alongside talents and playstyle, we'll still be taking a look at her weapon choices, constellations, artifact choices, team comps, and showcasing her in the abyss. If you are new here, first off, welcome to the channel and appreciate you dropping by. I also stream most nights on Twitch. Feel free to check out my community over there and their chaotic chill vibes. Link in the description. Alright, let's begin. Timestamps are provided for your convenience. Here's what my Yun Jin will look like for this video. Base investment of level 80 out of 80, Constellation 0, with level 1, 6 talents. For artifacts, I've opted to go for the 4-piece Husk set, but a lot of you won't have the luxury for a full 4-piece for a sub-DPS support, so don't worry if you can't manage this. Target a 2-piece Husk for the 30% defense, and then scavenge as much defense from the rest of our artifacts. Her main stats are running a pure defense transfer, a defense build. Here's what her artifacts look like and her general stats at level 80. She's running the Favonius Lance for the recharge secondary stat. The only thing that really matters here is her defense and whatever scrapes of recharge, plus the weapon that you can get from substats for her burst uptime. Crit rate and crit damage are still useful for her high scaling elemental skill, but require a bit higher quality artifacts that I won't be expecting you to have. So, how does Yun Jin work, especially if you don't have prior experience with Shenhe's kit? Just like Shenhe, Yun Jin's primary utility is acting as ammunition for your main DPS. Yun Jin's ammunition scales from her raw defense, and the DPS it does scales with your team's crit damage, normal attack damage bonus, and any elemental or physical damage bonus depending on the type of normal attack. As an example of what that means, Yoimiya will benefit additionally from pyro damage bonus for her pyro normal attack, whereas main DPS Fischl would only be physical normal attack. Yun Jin's ammo is locked behind her burst, different from Shenhe on her elemental skill. So priority of energy recharge for Yun Jin is much higher, but the benefit is that Yun Jin's burst costs less. Before we dive too deep though, let's cover her normal attack and elemental skill. And for those that watch my Shenhe guide, don't worry, this won't be a math class, I promise. Normal attack, one of the most fluid polearm animations in the game, and unless you are building DPS Yun Jin, this won't be used that much. Elemental skill, Yun Jin's Tide Collar, or Opening Flourish, sorry. Basically Beidou's elemental skill, but doesn't require to be attacked for max stacks. Its damage is entirely defense based, 0 attack scaling from here, and has 3 stages. There's the base stage or the press stage, charge level 1, and charge level 2. You can easily see which level her skill is by watching her flags. Base has no flags, charge level 1 has flags, and charge level 2 has glowing flags. And, just like Beidou's Ascension 1 talent, Yun Jin's Ascension 1 talent grants near immediate charge level 2 if she's hit right when she starts holding her elemental skill. The window for this is pretty generous, it doesn't have to be pixel perfect to pull off. Her elemental skill has a really solid multiplier beyond 500% defense at just level 6, generates 2 to 3 geoparticles depending on which stage and has a 9-second cooldown. Press only gives 2 geoparticles, charge level 1 and level 2 will give 3. Now it's time for her burst. Don't worry, not flooding you with the math this time. Activating deals initial AoE geo damage, and this is attack scaling. Then grants an aura following the active character, granting Yun Jin's def-based ammo to normal attacks. Her ammunition is not element restrictive and can strengthen any normal attack, whether it's physical, pyro, or whatever element. Yun Jin's burst does have a trigger quota of 30 over 12 seconds, which is per team member, for a theoretical total of 120. But we all know that 120 normal attacks aren't happening in 12 seconds. Yun Jin's ammo is more for one individual carry, dealing 30 instances of normal attack damage in 12 seconds. This means that Yun Jin's value only needs one character with high crit damage and normal attack plus physical elemental damage bonus to maximize her sub DPS. Typically, this is achieved if pairing Yun Jin with any normal attack using hyper carry, which brings to mind Fischl, Yoimiya, Razor, but also most DPS characters that use normal attack to some extent. Examples include Tartak and even Hu Tao, who people know as a charge attacker, but she does do one normal attack before every charge attack. Characters that can hit multiple enemies with one normal attack will proc multiple Yun Jin stacks per one normal attack. So Claymore users like Eula and Razor, don't fret if you can only get 10 autos in 12 seconds. It's still possible to hit the 30 quota if hitting 3 enemies simultaneously with those autos. Her burst has a 12-second duration with 15-second cooldown, and a 60 energy cost, making it fairly easily rotatable burst with an 80% uptime. So, how much can you expect her to buff characters then? Don't worry, I'm not using math this time, but in-game examples. So at level 6, her burst gives 45% defense ammo. Her Ascension 4 talent increases this 45% defense by an additive amount by the number of unique elements in your party. Most compositions will run on average 2, so we'll use 5% here as a baseline. This is an additive amount, so we can just add this to the multiplier here, giving 50% defense ammo. To make things simple, most triple defense Yun Jins will have over 2,000 defense. I'll use 1,000 ammo as a baseline of what you should expect. This can range between 900 to 1.25k, but keeping it at 1k should be fair and easy to calculate. My Yun Jin transfers just over 1,000 defense. Let's see in practice how much this increases for various builds. Here, I'll be using Eula with a level 1 1-star weapon. Her crit damage is 172% with 108% physical damage bonus. Zhongli in this team comp is being used for a common shield with minus resistance. So you can see here that the uncrit gained about 1.1k and the crit gained about 3k. For physical damage carries running 2 Pale Flame, 2 Bloodstained, this physical damage bonus would be expected. 172 crit damage I would consider medium end crit damage. With these stats, Yun Jin's sub DPS maximizes at 3,000 times 30 or 90,000 additional damage over 15 seconds. So what about a high end build then? Let's take My Yoimiya and run her with the R5 Thundering Pulse and 4-piece Shimanawas for a total of 270 crit damage and up to 130 normal attack damage bonus. This comes from 50% from Shimanawas and up to 80% from Thundering Pulse at 3 stacks. Her Goblet is not going to be running pyro damage bonus, but instead attack percent since mine has cracked crit stats. From the first autos, we can already see a flat damage increase of 4 to 4,500 damage on crits, reaching 5.5k in the later stages of Yoimiya's auto string when her A1 reaches full stacks. You can see how Yoimiya's weaker autos pack a much larger relative punch due to the flat gain. Her stronger autos gain a less percentage due to already being double or triple the multiplier. For Yoimiya, it's even more noticeable since her auto string is broken into smaller hits, which each gain Yun Jin's ammo increase. On this type of hypercarry investment of 270 crit damage and 130 elemental, physical, normal attack damage bonus, this increase reaches 5,000 by 30 or 150,000 damage over 15 seconds. This doesn't include more damage increases or resistance decreases like with Kazuha or Anemo Viridescent Venerer 4-piece set. So these two cases demonstrated a perfect world 90 to 150,000 damage over 15-second increase provided by Yun Jin. If you were to consider not critting and not maximizing the stacks, but also including Resistance Shred from Viridescent Venerer or Superconduct for physical damage dealers, this range can vary between 50,000 on the lower end to 250,000 over 15 seconds from her burst duration damage increase. It really depends how many buffs you are running and how stacked your hypercarry artifacts are. In my opinion, this is a fairly significant boost to a main DPS's potential rotation and can slot in as a comfortable niche. So, how do you rotate Yun Jin's kit then? Basic skill into burst rotation, no gimmicks there. So whether you do a press versus hold, activating the elemental skill into the burst allows the burst to collect the orbs from her skill generation. After that, swap to your carry's rotation and you're good. When you're off the burst cooldown, pop your elemental skill whenever available, hopefully utilizing A1's immediate charge level 2 to generate 3 particles nearly immediately. Otherwise, there's a delay in the charge. Remember that your burst is on a pretty strict timer with 30 activations in 12 seconds, so prepare to swap right away into your carry. That being said though, her relatively low burst cost plus build path makes her a forgiving character to play. Yun Jin's kit utilization is probably one of the simplest. Use your elemental skill whenever you can and it's available, and then burst her right before your main carry's rotation. Alright, what weapons work best with her then? So she is a defense-based polearm user, but we don't really have a dedicated defense polearm. Yes, I know that deathmatch exists, but I'm pretty sure you're probably using this on a DPS character. What's the next best stat to go for then? That's right, energy recharge. For our 4-star weapons, we have the trusty, craftable prototype Starglitter, providing a fair bit of recharge at 41.9% at level 80. Also, a more unique option that's also craftable is the Ketane Cross Spear. Though this does not provide the usual ER percent, but rather the passive gives a flat return when a character uses their elemental skill. The weapon sacrifices 3 flat energy when activating the skill, but refunds 9 over the next 6 seconds. This interferes with her usual playstyle though, since you can't run the elemental skill into burst unless you wait a tiny bit, but I'm mentioning it because it is an option. The most popular choice for her remains the Favonius Lance. Excellent self and team utility, provides recharge, but does require a bit of crit to maintain its passive. Like Diona, keep your eyes peeled for crit rate substats to hit a 30 to 40% mark for consistent application. Lastly, the catch. So, though this weapon does provide energy recharge, Yun Jin is not a burst damage character for this passive, so I generally wouldn't recommend this. If you plan to run a 5-star weapon for her, Skyward Spine provides raw recharge, Golfing Lightning if you're trying to have her cosplay Raiden Shogun, and for my DPS Yun Jin players, we have Jade Spear, Calamity, and Homa. DPS Yun Jin players also consider Deathmatch as well for the 4-star weapons. Generally though, my recommendation is going to be sticking with the Favonius Lance. Her rotations feel really smooth with it. On to Yun Jin's artifacts. Defense, defense, defense. Surprised? I think not. The higher that Yun Jin's defense is, the stronger that her sub-DPS infused to other characters will be from her burst transfer. In general, I would say that her artifacts are pretty straightforward, but there's a bit of nuance, so let's go over them. First off, set bonuses. There are 2 overall defense builds possible. First one is 4-piece Husk, which is what I'm running, and I prefer to run because grabbing the 4-piece Husk full stats from this is really easy for Yun Jin since she's off-field for most of the time, and then when she's on-field to proc her elemental skill or activate her burst, they both do geo damage to maintain the buff. With this set, she's able to maintain the 54% defense and 24% geo damage from just her artifact set. The other defense build is 2-piece Husk and 2-piece Defender's Will, which is the 4-star artifact set. This is a raw 60% defense gain with no caveats. However, you are forced to use 2 4-star artifacts, which means either a loss in one of the main stat pieces from the Timepiece, Goblet, or Mask, or if you're using a Flower Feather combo from Defender's Will, a loss of substat. Ideally, if you run this build, Defender's Will pieces are going to be in the Flower Feather spot where the main set doesn't matter for her, leaving the main stat pieces to be 5-star defense pieces. Now besides defense, what else could she use? Recharge. 2-piece emblem set can also be flexed in between any of those defense builds to run 30% defense, 20% recharge. Generally, this won't be necessary if running Favonius Lance, for example, subsets from artifacts, and even her Ascension stat, which I think most people don't mention that much, and her burst being 60 energy cost. But if you do have some juicy emblem defense pieces lying around, and you don't have the luxury to, for example, complete the 4-piece Husk set, this can definitely work. Now, other specific artifact mentions. 4-piece Archaic Petra. This specific playstyle for this artifact set involves your elemental skill into burst rotation, then collecting the shard before swapping out. So it's definitely doable, but I find it a little bit clunky. Some team compositions, mainly Yoimiya for example, can definitely make use of this, but more player attention is necessary. In general, I would find the defense-oriented build to be lazier, and therefore potentially more comfortable to play. 4-piece Noblesse is also a default burst buffing set, which is definitely usable on her, but I'd like to point out that generally, since she's only targeting one hyper carry to focus her kit on, 12% attack for that character versus over 50% for Yun Jin herself is typically not worth it in my opinion. And finally, for early game players, target Defender's Will 2-piece for the 30% defense, and the other 3 artifacts can be whatever. Main stat pieces then. So, just like Shenhe, instead of talking about them individually, here's some group sets because it'll make more sense. Default build, triple defense slam. Aim for recharge from the substats as well as crit rate if using Favonius Lance, and extra crit damage for her own elemental skill damage. Then we have the recharge heavy energy recharge timepiece, defense build. This is usable if the energy recharge timepiece has an insane like 25% defense substat. Generally though, this build will be really overkill for energy recharge since her ascension stat is energy recharge. And then we have elemental skill damage build, defense percent, geo bonus cup, and crit based mask. This is a standard defense scaling DPS build if you want to see huge numbers with their elemental skill, which does have a fairly strong multiplier. Personally, however, I am running a triple defense-based build with Favonius Lance weapon and as much crit rate and crit damage from artifacts that I can get along with a slight bit of energy recharge. Her stats right now are satisfactory, 2.1k defense along with 3110 and 160 recharge, but could use more improvement here. Constellations. In my opinion, Yun Jin has pretty standard constellations, nothing super broken or game-changing, but welcome buffs that synergize with her kit. Constellation 1. Elemental skill cooldown decreased by 18%. This pushes her elemental skill cooldown from 9 seconds to 7.4 seconds, which is basically exactly half of her burst cooldown, which is 15 seconds. Allows you to rotate exactly 2 elemental skills per burst, improving her energy generation slightly as well. Constellation 2. Activating her burst buffs team member normal attack damage by 15% for 12 seconds, which is over the entire duration of her burst. It's simple, synergistic, and an effective constellation. Constellation 3, plus 3 levels to her burst, her defense infusion ability. Each level increases her defense by 3%, so 9% for Constellation 3. 9% for a 2k defense is almost a 200 flat increase for her ammo, which is 15 to 20% DPS increase for Yun Jin. Pretty significant. Constellation 4. When she procs Crystallize, she gains 20% defense for 12 seconds. This is another small buff for her. She usually will proc Crystallize when activating her skill into burst playstyle after any of your setup supports, so this just keeps making her transfer slightly stronger. Yun Jin's base defense is between 600 to 700 depending on level 80 or 90, so this increases her defense by about 140 for 12 seconds. Constellation 5. This is plus 3 levels on her elemental skill, nothing special. Constellation 6. Characters under her burst aura gain 12% normal attack speed. We don't have too many attack speed increases, so this is a nice extra buff and usually equates 1-to-1 to DPS increase, so 12% DPS increase. This will allow characters to reach her 30 quota more consistently and breach higher attack speed thresholds with other attack speed increasing characters. In general, Yun Jin's constellations are quite nice all the way through. At Constellation 6, her sub-DPS potential and buffing capabilities from Constellations will end up being pretty powerful. I would estimate that the range of 50 to 250,000 DPS over 15 seconds from the talent section can increase to 70 to 350,000 with Constellations. It's about a 40% increase to her raw level of DPS transfer. So what teams does she fit on? Let's first provide generally what I would say her strongest. Yun Jin with Yoimiya or Fischl as main DPS, Razor or Eula, both claim more DPS, Tartag, melee stance specifically, and Noelle. That's generally a lot of characters. Yun Jin is honestly one of the most flexible units to infuse high-hit normal attackers. Yoimiya and Fischl are staple main DPS bow users. Razor and Eula are main DPS claymore users. Noelle is the star of mono geo defense if running normal attack. And Tartag has access not only to melee stance attacks, which qualify, but also his Riptide bursts when enemies are slain, which also qualify as normal attack damage. Yun Jin acts as a standalone 4th slot in each of these compositions and does not have to contribute reaction-wise anywhere else. Yoimiya can still run Monopyro with Cosmo Bennett, or Vaporize with Xingqiu. Fischl just needs a Cryo Superconduct enabler, same with Razor or Eula. Noelle can slam Mono Geo defense with Albedo, Goro, and Yun Jin. As much as I would love to also include Ito here, Ito is more of a charge attacker instead of a normal attacker, so Yun Jin does not buff charge attacks. Tartag can run Taser Electro or Melt with Shaolin Bennett. Don't feel the need to force her Ascension 4, which is the increased defense transfer the more unique elements are on the team. Just let it exist as a small buff. Rotation-wise, for any of the previously mentioned team comps, I would usually incentivize Yun Jin to be right before switching to main DPS carry. But it can honestly vary team comp to team comp, depending on the timing and how fast certain characters can explode the 30 quota. Single target normal attacks like Yoimiya and Fischl will want as much time with her aura as possible, whereas AoE normal attacks like Tartag and Noelle need much less auto attacks to hit the 30 cap. And worth mentioning, all of you gamers out there running unconventional main DPS with your beloved favorite characters, no matter who they are, Yun Jin will allow them to smack harder if they have low multipliers or low attack in general. All they need is crit rate crit damage and their elemental or physical damage bonus goblets. Alright, let's showcase how her rotation is in some team comps. She'll be running the Favonius Lance with 4-piece Husk. Cue the music, Mr. Cope. And with the showcase complete, that about wraps up the core of this guide. With a unique defense and fusion mechanic that targets one hypercarry main DPS, Yun Jin excels at providing any and all normal attackers with simple but effective supportive fire. If this guide helped you understand Yun Jin a little better, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It's free and really helps the video get recommended and reach a broader audience. Thanks for watching, and I wish that everyone still trying to summon Yun Jin the best of luck. We'll see you on the next one. Take care.